Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
Wednesday edition of Vegas Take coming to you live, 101.5 FM, 720 AM KDON. Talking Las Vegas. Chris went in for Brian Shapiro on this Wednesday, along with J.D. Sharp. We are all anticipating.
Dubs, you got some love, man.
I get some love. I got callers calling in saying, I appreciate your approach.
Your
are they trying to take a backhanded slap at our host there, J.D.?
I think they just like your demeanor.
Yeah.
It's similar to mine, but we do. You know, Brian's more aggressive and eccentric, and I'm still kind of laid back. But you're kind of like in the middle between both of us, unless you're really fired up. If you're fired up,
I get fired up. You know me. I can get loud on this show.
But we're on different sides politically, so it's all working out.
Yes, and thanks to Destiny Herndon De La Rosa joining us here live in studio. And I know, JD, you wanted to kind of expand on the conversation we just had with her.
That was a very, very interesting conversation. Extremely well-spoken, intelligent woman, by the way.
Yes.
I wanted just to give her credit for that. I thought she was great on air. My expectations were actually exceeded. That being said, something she mentioned specifically, when you have a child and you are not, and you are not financially prepared to have that child,
right?
But you also so you have the child, you don't have enough money to care for it, but you also want to work at the same time. The feminist angle. The question is, where is that money coming from to cover all of those expenses? And it's hard for me to understand how you can be totally pro-life, but also pro-women working immediately after having birth, and also anti-government, because the money, to me, has to come from the government to cover those expenses, to me, which is bordering on, socialism.
Yeah, well, it seems kind of an element of you want your cake and eat it too, right, JD?
Exactly.
There's something to that where, you want to be, it's not necessarily pleasing to all sides, but there's kind of a concept there where you expect, hey, I want this, and this, and I believe in this, and this.
Right, like every family, for example,
the means to an end doesn't exactly add up from a government standpoint.
Every family, for example, is expected to put up, $40 a month into some giant fund across the country that helps these women once they have children, work immediately after they have their child instead of, like for example, taking 3 or 4 years off for whatever reason. It's very hard to believe that, or to understand, for it to add up, that you can be anti-government yet want all those things, because to me, all that money has to be coming from the government.
And, but the fact remains is Destiny will be out there tonight. They will have their protest outside of the Democratic convention. And look, let's make no mistake about it. There still is that approach here in America where there are people who are either anti-abortion or pro-choice. I to be quite honest with you, JD, and to the listeners out there, I really am hesitant to call people who are anti-abortion pro-life, because that's an insinuation. You're making a determination that those of us who are pro-choice, and I would consider myself one of those, that we're in some way anti-life. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. And I pointed that out to Destiny. I said, look, I'm someone who, I'm not on board. I think any reasonable, rational human being out there would not be on board, would not be okay with late-term abortion, right? Where, there is a viable human being that, in the womb that is a month to 3 months away from being born, that is, you would, for all intents and purposes, call a human being. I don't think people are down with that. But, there's also this notion out there that, and I think Destiny is one of those people that are on board with saying, there's people out there that are okay with abortion up until the baby's born. And I just don't think that is something that is a conventional thought process of a lot of Americans out there. I don't think that was the intent when Roe versus Wade was basically determined to be legal back in 1973. That's not been the mental. That's not the mental approach that Americans take.
There needs to be a benchmark,
right?
And I think that maybe that's 16 to 17. I think 22 is too long, but 16 to 17 weeks is probably a good benchmark. Now, that being said, say you're 2 months out and the woman has toxemia or she has something just terrible, and there's a chance that she is going to die, and the baby needs to come out 3 to 4 weeks early, and maybe she has a debilitating issue that's going to affect the rest of her life. There should be a transitionary situation in place to help that baby, go to a new family.
And that being said,
I think that should definitely take place. But I am a firm believer that having a child and not being financially prepared to have a child is not good for that child's life, and it's just not good for the country in general for a number of reasons. And I prefer when a woman is going to have a child that she or her and her family or her husband or whatever are financially stable to give that child a very good life.
That's J.D. Sharp. I'm Chris Wynn in for Brian Shapiro here on a Wednesday. It is the Vegas Take. And look, there's going to be a lot of people that are on Destiny and the New Wave feminist side when it comes to the debate tonight and going out there and protesting. I'm sure they're going to be out there. A lot of Las Vegans will be out there that support her cause. So we'll see exactly how that goes down. And now we make kind of a transition here to a different topic because Rush Limbaugh, obviously a very prominent radio host, someone who's an icon in this business without question. Okay, I don't think there's anybody that can deny that even whether you like Rush Limbaugh or not, he is definitely someone who has made his mark in radio. Well, Rush Limbaugh had some disparaging remarks on his Monday show about Democratic presidential hopeful Pete Buttigieg kissing his husband, and it struck many as being homophobic. And now Limbaugh says Donald Trump doesn't want to apologize for them. Limbaugh claimed on his show on Monday that the president called the talk show host, who is about to go, while he was about to go in a medical procedure, I would expect for his cancer treatment. He's determined to have lung cancer very recently. And according to audio captured by Media Matters, Trump desperately needed to speak to him, Limbaugh recounted, before insisting that he should never apologize. Limbaugh kind of described the whole scenario. He said, look, I'm going through a medical procedure. Can the president call me back in like 35 minutes, JD? And apparently the White House conceded that. They did that. And then 35 minutes later, they called. And Rush Limbaugh had said that the president gave him advice to never apologize for the comments that he made regarding Pete Buttigieg. Now, I want to set this up. I want to give the original comments that Rush made with respect to Mayor Pete and his sexuality that I think started the whole controversy.
They're looking at Mayor Pete. 37-year-old gay guy, Mayor South Bend, loves to kiss his husband on the debate stage. And they're saying, okay, how's this going to 37-year-old gay guy kissing his husband on stage next to Mr. Man, Donald Trump? What's going to happen there?
And, of course, there is the mindset of a lot of conservative Americans out there that we can all, I think, understand how they feel about this type of situation where we have a presidential candidate who is a homosexual, right? Who is sexual orientation is going to come to the forefront and their views on that. And so, as you would expect, the way that President Trump approaches a lot of controversial things that he says or that he does, the approach by President Trump is never to apologize, right? So in this next clip, Rush explains exactly what President Trump advised him to do.
When I am moments away from commencing a medical procedure, and I had to tell doctors, you got to give me a half hour, the president's calling. Okay, well, wait a half hour. Then I told the White House, look, I got a medical procedure in 10 minutes. Can you have the president call me back in 35? And they did. So he called back. And he said, Rush, I just got to tell you something. Never apologize. Don't ever. I said, for what? What? I had no idea this thing had even bubbled up. You know, I'm up doing the medical thing that I have to do here, and I wasn't even aware of this. So here's what I think's going on. Then I became aware of it, and Catherine's, oh, yeah, they're all over you. It's the usual thing. They're saying you said things you didn't say. All you had to do, Rush, was mention somebody is gay, and here they come, you're a homophobe. And that's exactly what this is.
Okay, now there's this element here with Rush and some others, with Sean and others who have a direct line to the president where they're not afraid to brag about it, right, JD? I mean, isn't there something to this where, you know, they want to point out, you know what? I've got access to the man. I can on a moment's notice, I can pick up the phone
it's a subtle,
and dial up the president. It's a subtle. You know what?
It's definitely a subtle.
I'm a big deal, and I want to make sure all of you guys understand that. You know what? Anytime I want to talk to the commander in chief, I can just grab that phone and dial them up. Isn't? I mean, come on.
That's what we call a subtle Rush flex.
Exactly. It's a mind, muscle flex. As far as it's like an and one in basketball where you flex after you make the layup and get fouled. It's like you're flexing your muscles a little bit.
It's just the president. He's just calling me really quick. I got to call back the president. So hold on.
So in this next clip here, to round out the audio clips from Rush Limbaugh, actually Rush concedes that he kind of, he basically, this is his perspective as far as people that are upset with what he said.
They are mad about my remarks about Mayor Pete because they think a lot of people didn't know that he's gay. I'm talking about the low information voters, the great unwashed. They think that there's a lot of people that don't know he's gay and that I sort of dropped the dime on it.
Okay, so there's kind of like a concession from Rush there that he understands the people that are going to criticize him and come out and berate him for the comments that he made. And that goes without saying, right, JD? I mean, there's going to be people who are Mayor Buttigieg supporters and people who are Democratic supporters and people that think that he would make a good president now. I mean, I can get into my thoughts as far as Pete Buttigieg and what I think his political future is, but it's out there. People have their opinions on him, and unfortunately, and I can say that word, I think it has to do with sexual orientation. I think that people are going to use that as a focus or as some type of talking point when you're talking about Pete Buttigieg as a viable Democratic candidate for president of the United States.
Well, and it's interesting that Donald Trump said never apologize for anything, which he doesn't do, by the way. Obviously,
no.
that just proves that Donald Trump believes that apologizing is perceived as weakness. It's perceived as going back on your word, which, again, is not what a strong leader does. It's all about being a strong leader with Donald Trump. But I will tell you this, Pete Buttigieg's numbers are down to 8%. They were higher than that last week. Rush Limbaugh, and I believe that Donald Trump told him to do what he did. And again, I'm a Trump supporter. But Rush Limbaugh has branded him as 37-year-old, inexperienced, gay Pete. That's who he is now. That's what the country. I mean, Rush Limbaugh has 30 million listeners. And even if 25 million of those listeners agree with him, now the country, with all the press that it got last week, now the country, to the country, Pete Buttigieg is young, inexperienced, gay Pete. And so Rush Limbaugh did exactly what he wanted to do. He hurt Pete Buttigieg's presidential campaign, in my opinion, by doing that. And what's even worse is then Donald Trump goes on and says, oh, by the way, I would vote for a gay president. So now the Democratic Party, which is so anti-anything Donald Trump, now what are they going to do?
That's just a textbook, though, off-the-cuff President Trump thing to do, though, right?
The expectation was Donald Trump.
He sees that as an opportunity,
of course,
and he takes it.
He set himself up. He set himself up for the opportunity by having Rush do what he did, and then he goes on and says, "Oh yeah, by the way, it doesn't even matter. Who cares?" Yeah. And now the Democrats, because now the Democratic, I mean, the majority of the Democratic Party are running on the fact they're just not Donald Trump. Well, if Donald Trump is okay with a homosexual man as president of the United States, then what are they going against? And so I think that actually has hurt Pete Buttigieg by the fact that Rush branded him as homosexual, which he is, which is completely fine. And then Donald Trump says, by the way, I have no issue with this whatsoever. And that shouldn't be a surprise because Donald Trump, he's a New York guy. He's never been outspoken about homosexuality or gay marriage or anything along those lines as a bad thing. Now, the issue with Pete Buttigieg, to me, he is inexperienced in so many ways, policy-wise. But also, I think that foreign countries will perceive us as weaker if we have a homosexual man as president of the United States.
702-257-5396 is the phone number. Your thoughts, your takes on this issue. We've been talking about Rush Limbaugh making comments considered controversial about Pete Buttigieg, the Democratic candidate for president, and the president of the United States weighing in saying, hey, Rush, never apologize for anything. Now, it's interesting you brought up, JD, the thoughts of President Trump and him saying, you know what, I'd vote for a gay guy for president of the United States because Rush Limbaugh is taking the basically, I don't know if he's taking the other side, but he's pointing out the other side, saying that he suggested that Democratic Party leaders thought, quote unquote, America's still not ready to elect a gay guy kissing his husband on the debate stage, president of the United States. I'm telling you, there is an underlying faction of this country that still thinks about the things that gay people do, whether it's in private or not in private, and it's something that turns off a lot of voters in this country. As someone who, again, I myself have no issue whatsoever with Pete Buttigieg as a person. I think that he would make a good president. I think he has a tremendous political future. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But JD, I think you would concede, and a lot of people would understand, there's people out there that have a real issue with a gay man or a gay woman, for that matter, being president of the United States. And it's because of the gay lifestyle.
I think that there are more people that are not just a gay woman. I think that there are a lot of Americans who do not want a female president. I think there's
don't want a female at all.
I think there are a heck of a lot of Americans who want nothing to do with a female president in any circumstances whatsoever, more so than there are a homosexual man. But I think that other foreign countries, if we had a female president, foreign countries wouldn't care about that, because there's a lot of female prime ministers. A lot of the Queen of England, obviously, is one that's obviously very, very involved. But if we had a homosexual man, I believe that it would potentially put us in a situation of where we are perceived as a weaker country than we were, with Donald Trump or George Bush or Barack Obama or Ronald Reagan or whoever it was as the former president of the United States.
The phone lines are open, 702-257-5396. Kevin joins us here in the Vegas Take. Kevin, what's going on?
What's up, Kevin?
Hey, guys. Hey, let me just tell you, that Rush Limbaugh, he made my day when they told me he got cancer. It's like, he got it right that time. But 230 million listeners, you guys are the scum of the earth, man. It's terrible. You guys are smelly Walmart people. God, you're the worst, man.
Are you talking about Rush Limbaugh's listeners or our listeners? I'm confused.
Rush Limbaugh listeners and Rush Limbaugh.
Oh, okay. Because I was making sure. Look, I mean,
I thought you started with Rush and then just started calling us scumbags. I was very confused.
I was a little confused.
Okay. You guys, there's no hope for you guys. You guys are just scum, man. There's no hope for you guys.
Well,
you guys beat up on the gays. You guys beat up on just people trying to do right. You guys breaking every law that there is. It's like, they got it right with Rush. Hopefully it finishes the job.
Yeah, we appreciate the phone call, Kevin. Thanks for dialing us up. I would push back on the whole. Look, there's a lot of people that I disagree with. There's a lot of people that I don't like. There's a lot of people that I don't necessarily have the same views of. But at the same time, I don't take it as far as saying I wish cancer upon you. I don't take it as far as saying I wish you die in a helicopter crash. I don't. I think that's. I think that's. God if
got it right.
If that's your approach, I think that's wrong. I don't think
that's a bit extremist,
yeah.
Kevin. I appreciate the fact that obviously you weren't a huge fan of Rush Limbaugh or Rush supporters, and Rush has said some very racist things. But he's also an entertainer. That's part of what and I think it's more so on his audience than it is on him. But that's more so what his audience wants to hear, and he definitely has appeased his audience for the 33 years that he's done his show. But yes, obviously neither of us wish cancer upon anybody or death upon anyone.
Yeah, and as we've pointed out many times, as Brian, as the host of this show, has pointed out, myself, when sometimes I'm filling in when I'm co-hosting with you, JD, and JD, you as well, too. We disagree with people all the time. We don't like people as far as, look, I've been a proposed never Trumper, right? I don't think Donald Trump is a good person. I don't think necessarily he should be president of the United States, but I don't wish death upon him. I don't wish him to be, his fingernails being pulled out and tortured and killed. I don't have any part of that. So, I mean, there's kind of a fine line. Actually, not necessarily a very fine line. There's basically a line,
Chris,
I don't go there.
This is how much Donald Trump is just controlling the media and has for the last 3 years. If Donald Trump had said that America will never have a homosexual president, and had he gone along with Rush Limbaugh's comments, Pete Buttigieg would be the absolute guaranteed 100% shoo-in lockdown frontrunner for Democratic candidate in 2020.
And look, as I pointed out twice already in the segment, he has a future. He has a definite future in politics.
But Trump,
I think he's going to be president.
But Trump agreeing or disagreeing with Rush Limbaugh did not help Pete Buttigieg, because now the thought process is, well, Donald Trump supports Pete Buttigieg, which is so anti-democratic at this point, which is exactly the opposite of what they're trying to accomplish.
702-257-5396 is the phone number. Joel joins us now here on the Vegas Take. Joel, we appreciate your phone call. Talking about Rush Limbaugh and this Pete Buttigieg controversy.
Hey, what's up, Joel?
I'm doing okay. Thanks for taking my call.
Absolutely.
D, you said that the rest of the world would perceive us as being weak if we elected a gay president. Buttigieg is a U.S. military veteran. I doubt anybody's going to think a military veteran is somehow weak. And given the state of our relationships, not only with our allies but our adversaries today, I don't see how Buttigieg could do any worse than where Trump has us now. We're in one of the worst positions we've been in decades with regard to our relationships with our allies, and some of our adversaries are playing us like cheap fiddles.
Which adversaries are playing us like cheap fiddles exactly?
Kim,
Russia?
In North Korea. Putin owns Trump. There's no doubt about that. Trump is Putin's boy.
He's Putin.
That's the way we see it.
Okay, you think Trump is Putin's boy? Do you think that maybe Vladimir Putin owns a couple of banks that have loaned Donald Trump X amount of dollars, and there's an underlying debt that we're not seeing in his tax returns, or what's your reasoning for that?
Well,
or is it just because or is it just because he is not being combative with Vladimir Putin on a public stage, or at least he has chosen not to do it? What's your reasoning for Trump being owned by Putin?
First of all, we don't know what the financial relationship might be because Trump has refused to show his tax returns. Number two, every time Trump meets with Putin, it's done in private with no taking place. Number three, the last two times the first two times that Putin and Trump met, Trump went out of his way to give Putin a pass on a variety of issues, including meddling in the 2016 election.
What is Trump supposed to do in regards to Vladimir Putin and Russia, especially with Putin, not being against violence, not being against war, being the leader of a superpower like us, like Russia? What is he supposed to do? Is he supposed to put us in a position to start some type of conflict, or what are your expectations of Trump?
And we had to bounce Joel out because we were up against a hard break, but I think his point that he was making, though, as far as like strength, projecting strength, right? People are going to think of Pete Buttigieg being a veteran, right, in the armed forces. That's going to offset a lot of that thought process as far as him being weak on the world stage. I think that in general, I think that's a fair assessment to make, right, when it comes to Pete Buttigieg and what he brings to the table from a projection of power standpoint. So we'll see how this goes forward as far as Pete Buttigieg. I think he's a very viable candidate for president, maybe not necessarily in 2020, but certainly further on down the line. I'm Chris Wynn in for Brian Shapiro along with J.D. Sharp here live. It is the Vegas Take coming your way live on a Wednesday. Coming up next, John Schaefer is going to join us with all the news. Very busy next 3-4 days here in Las Vegas on the political spectrum. That and much more as we continue here, 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAWN. Wednesday edition of the Vegas Take coming right live, 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAWN, Talk of Las Vegas. I'm Chris Wynn in for Brian Shapiro, along with J.D. Sharp here live in studio. We appreciate you callers holding on the line. We're going to get back to it on the other side of our esteemed news anchor here at KDWN, John Schaefer.
Not as much as we appreciate that transitional EDM music.
That is good stuff, isn't it? I was having flashbacks to 1995 and my ventures into some of the clubs in Orlando, Florida, where a lot of glow sticks were flying around. But I digress. John, I appreciate you spending some time with us. How are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Doing great.
Doing well.
Yeah. I'm going to pull your mic up real quick so we can actually get a chance to hear John.
No, I think it's Mike.
Is it? Do we have his mic on?
I'm on.
Okay, no, he's good now.
Oh, you're good to go.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, another flock of pigeons wearing headgear has been spotted in Vegas. This time they are wearing wigs resembling President Trump's hair and Make America Great hats. They were released in downtown Las Vegas ahead of the president's visit this week. The birds were released by an underground group called Putin, Pigeons United to Interfere Now. They said their mission was inspired by the Cold War 1970s Operation Tucana, in which the CIA tested the use of pigeons equipped with cameras to spy on Soviet targets.
Okay, so JD, I heard John's report this morning here on KDWN about this story, and I just had to think to myself, people, can we stop putting things on the top of pigeons' heads? Can this stop being a story? Not just here in Nevada, but around the country.
It's not going to ever stop, Chris, because they're considered to be cockroaches, basically.
Yeah.
They're on the same level as insects.
They have no rights.
So this is going to keep happening probably for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually, that's kind of funny. I
mean, they're funny looking.
No, but Putin being called
Yes.
Putin, having Trump's hair on a wig, that to me that's hilarious.
But it's just another round for the animal activists to come out. They're going to come out just hammering this situation again.
I'm not a pigeon hater by any stretch of the imagination, but
I am. By every stretch of the imagination.
But, that being said, they literally do not have rights.
No, they do not. The 9th Democratic presidential debate will be the first featuring Mike Bloomberg, the former New York mayor and billionaire owner of a financial data and news empire. He's demonstrated the power of essentially an unlimited budget, but tonight here in Las Vegas, he'll have to directly engage with 5 other contenders who have been debating one another for months, holding town halls and answering voter questions.
That's the dynamic, right, that everyone is going to focus on tonight. It's going to be not necessarily, Joe Biden versus Bernie Sanders or Bernie Sanders versus Elizabeth Warren. It's going to be all the other candidates and how they respond to Mike Bloomberg,
I think
right?
so. Yeah. They're after him. A Henderson couple who returned home Sunday from an Asian cruise plagued by the coronavirus is at very low risk for developing the virus, according to the Southern Nevada Health District. Paulette and Joseph Schaefer have been told by the district to monitor themselves for any symptoms, and if any develop, come in for testing. They have not been told to stay in their home.
It's interesting how the news of the quarantines across the board has, how the American public has responded.
Yeah.
I think it's generally been the consensus around that this is something that we shouldn't need to worry about as of right now, right? It's something that is kind of, going by the wayside. And
I don't know, Chris.
Look, obviously, it's very tragic that people that are, that are dying from this disease, but it's also, I think that's something that a lot of people, not just in America, but around the world, want to fade into the background.
Two days ago in Wuhan, the director of one of the biggest hospitals passed away of this, and they were on the Diamond Princess cruise ship.
Yeah.
Okay, the one where they were actually docked on the side for 14 days, and I believe there were 173 cases of the coronavirus. I'm not real happy that they're not asked to stay in their home, based on what I've read about everything.
Yeah, I'm more worried about it than most people, too, because I don't think China's telling the truth.
Yeah.
Shockingly.
All the facts, you don't think all the facts are coming out?
Surprisingly, I'm not sure.
I think there's been 1,800 deaths. I read a woman's testimony, and she was in the hospital for about 2 hours, and she said she saw in those 2 hours 6 dead bodies in one hospital taken out. So I think those numbers are very off as well.
But I do like watching the video from China where there are people in masks just tackling people on the streets because they think they might have symptoms. Could you imagine that happening here?
Oh, I couldn't actually, but
it's very scary.
Yeah. Well, police in Gainesville, Florida, are investigating after a contractor doing work on a home Monday discovered half a dozen jars containing human tongues inside a crawl space beneath the house. Police were dispatched to the home after receiving a 911 call that human remains dating back to the 1960s had been found. Investigators found half a dozen plastic gallon-sized jars containing human tongues.
Was law enforcement on the site of Silence of the Lambs 2? This is a very strange story to me. This is not. But of all the states in America where this would take place, is there any shock to anybody that Florida happens to be the state that this is going down?
No, absolutely not.
It is not.
No.
Craziness. John Schaefer, news director, anchor here at KDWN. We appreciate you jumping in on a Wednesday.
Sure.
Yeah. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Oh, I will.
We have been talking, of course, about Rush Limbaugh and the controversial comments made about presidential candidate Pete Buttigieg, his sexual orientation, how that's going to come into play in the 2020 election and in the primary, obviously, with the Democratic candidates. The phone line's wide open, and they're stocked up right now. Hit us up, 702-257-5396. We want to get your thoughts on this. And the president giving Rush Limbaugh advice on how to handle this from a apology or no apology perspective. Let's jump over on the phone lines. JD joins us now here on the Vegas Take. JD, thanks for the phone call. How are you?
What's up, JD?
I'm doing great, but getting better, guys. Could I just straighten out a few things that are facts regarding Putin and Trump? Starting going back to Obama, making deals with Putin and Hillary with the reset button, starting to the election of 2016. Let me ask everybody a question. Who do you think Putin knew better? Hillary Clinton and all the acquisition, how much she acquiesced to his wants, or Donald Trump? Then Mr. Putin, under Obama's watch and Hillary's watch, invades Crimea and takes over and starts a war with Ukraine. What did Putin get from? What help did they get from Hillary and Obama? They got blankets sent to Poland. They didn't even send them to the Ukraine. Along comes Donald Trump, supposedly being helped by Russia, which has been proven not to happen by Mueller, emphatically. Along comes Trump, and what does he do in 2017, 18, and 19? He gives Ukraine all kinds of armaments to stop tanks and missiles and what have you. And then what does he do? He puts on sanctions against Russia that nobody has ever put on Russia as far as Obama or Bush or anybody else, the harshest sanctions for the last 3 years. Now, he meets him in public. What is he supposed to do in front of the world? Poke the bear in the tummy and say, oh, you better not do this because this or that, or piss him off, and then, he only has the same amount of nuclear weapons that we have. So does he not have to try and get along?
No, it's just it's not advantageous for Donald Trump to get into a combative situation with Vladimir Putin and Russia. And I do think I kind of agree with you, JD. I think Obama, what he did was when something was about to get, we'll call it aggressive, right, he would open up the checkbook and he would compensate them to get out of the situation, or he basically paid for peace, in my opinion.
Yeah, JD, we appreciate the phone call. I mean, we're talking about the relationship, though, as far as Trump to Rush Limbaugh and Pete Buttigieg, not necessarily, who was a better friends with Putin. Because I would pose this question to JD. I know he's off the line now, but JD, you talked about, who was closer to Vladimir Putin, Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. Well, I would ask this question to you. Conversely, I would say, who did Vladimir Putin and Russia want to win the 2016 election? Do they want Hillary Clinton to win, or do they want Donald Trump to win? And you know the answer to that. The answer is obviously Donald Trump. And the reason we know that is because Vladimir Putin said it when he was asked in a press conference who they wanted to win the election. They said Donald Trump, and it wasn't Hillary Clinton. So I understand the kind of connection that JD wanted to make there as far as Hillary Clinton and Democrats with Vladimir Putin and Russia, but it doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about here with Rush Limbaugh and Pete Buttigieg and Trump.
How do you think that Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un would perceive Pete Buttigieg, a 37-year-old gay man, Pete Buttigieg, as president of the United States?
Kim Jong-un
and Vladimir Putin.
I think both of them.
How do you think they would perceive him?
They would perceive him as a gay man.
I think he would be. I think he would be a mark. I think he would be a bit of a target.
They wouldn't think of him as Donald Trump. I know that.
I don't think Donald Trump is perceived as a target by either of those two men and their percent.
So you think that Kim Jong Un and Vladimir Putin can say, oh, there's no way that we have to worry about the president of the United States because he's a gay guy?
No,
is that what you're basically trying to say?
I think that they would attempt to take advantage of him, in which case it would obviously trickle down to the United States.
702-257-5396 is the phone number. Tim joins us here on the Vegas Take. Tim, thanks for the call.
Hey, what's up, Tim?
Hi. You just mentioned about Putin, about him recommending for who's going to be president.
Yeah, he didn't really recommend. He was asked.
He wouldn't tell you the truth. Most leaders are indifferent. They take things as they come, and that's from words of a president who said that. He would never play counterfactual stuff. But anyway, about Rush Limbaugh, my opinion is from observing him and actually listening to him for many years, is he is definitely playing the game, but he's saying about Democratic voters. Republican voters who are against gay people are not going to vote for Buttigieg or anybody else like that. But about that, Rush Limbaugh does have experience in this area. He's not against gay people necessarily. well, I guess he certainly plays that card, especially what was it, the castrati, which you could take would be that. Mm-hmm. But he had that experience with Elton John where he went to his wedding and they made some sort of negotiation. But forget about that. To me, it's not important. That's my personal opinion. This is about demographics, though. But what I do have experience is I did go to South Bend at least 2 years ago. I was staying with a friend of mine. She gave me some input about him as the mayor, but I didn't pay much attention. I was thinking of actually making an appointment because I had some business, but it wasn't really a good match. His experience is mainly with Notre Dame. The entire city, it's only 50,000 people, would dry up and blow away if it weren't for Notre Dame. Notre Dame dictates the policy to that city, and they have their own police force, their own separate city, their everything. He has a good connection with Notre Dame, and he's done some good work. He would never get away with what he's done if he didn't serve in the military. That's what actually this lady said, is that he intentionally served in the military for his, I guess, I don't know. That's what she said. But he's done...
Which is completely reasonable.
Yeah.
He's saying that he served in the military to pad his political resume.
Maybe. Well, a lot of people have been like a Kerry.
Sure.
Republicans have. They've both Nixon and John F. Kennedy have been claimed to have done that by people who were friends. But anyway, that's not important. It's not. I'm a military veteran. I arguably have had more experience than he under fire, quote unquote, because neither of us really have to any great degree. But apparently, because I've read some. But the big thing that bothers me about Buttigieg is that he's 38 years old?
He's 37.
Inexperienced presidents are a danger.
I agree.
Yeah.
No, I like.
Pretty good.
We appreciate the call. Thanks.
Very good call. One thing about Donald Trump and Michael Bloomberg is these guys have been, they've been screwed over in deals before. They've seen a bad deal, they've seen a good deal, they've seen good compromise, they've seen bad compromises. A guy like Pete Buttigieg has never been in that type of situation.
Well, the caller brings up an interesting point too, as far as not just electability, but who's going to vote. Who the voters, what kind of voters these Democratic candidates are going after. We all acknowledge, right, that the Democrats aren't going after the Trump supporters, the hardcore people, right? Right, JD? They're not going after people that vote Republican. They're not going after people that obviously are not going to vote for a gay man for president of the United States, whether he's Republican or Democrat. They're going after the voters who were Obama voters that switched over and voted for Trump because they didn't like Hillary. They're going after the voters who, stayed home last time because they just didn't have the enthusiasm for Hillary. That is the contingent. That's the electorate that these Democrats are going after.
That's definitely the target.
Win the election.
That's definitely the target voting demographic.
Yes.
But I also think that it is women, because there's an understanding that there are a lot of 30 to 55-year-old women who don't support Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And I think Rush Limbaugh was targeting those women with that statement.
702-257-5396 is the number. Paul joins us here in the Vegas Take. Paul, thanks for the call. How are you?
What's up, Paul?
Good. Not much. How you guys doing today?
Doing great.
Yeah.
Good. I think the two main things that Buttigieg has going for him is right now it's trendy to be gay. And another thing is there's not much known about him. So nobody's had
whoa, wait a minute.
to expose anything bad about him.
You said trendy to be gay. I don't necessarily agree with that because that's not what is that?
I think what he's saying
you're looking at it as a benefit, as something that's going to
being homosexual is more socially acceptable than it was 20 or 30 years ago.
Here's the thing.
Okay, that's different.
Our country right now is going through the politically correct phase. And so now things that were once taboos are something that everybody wants to make sure that the rest of the world knows that they're tolerant to. And the truth is probably more people that claim to be so immensely tolerant is they're most likely kind of indifferent. But they want everyone to think that, oh, hey, yeah, of course, I'm progressive, this, that, and the other. And I personally don't care that a person is gay, but it's just I think right now, I never kept up with politics until President Trump was elected, and the only reason I kept up with it is because all these corny late-night talk show, it's like they don't have much to say that's funny anyway, so they all grab onto the lowest hanging fruit, which the butt of every joke was President Trump.
Yeah.
And I was like, I kind of like, I think he's kind of a jerk too. And then, so I started paying more attention to it, and it was just like, they're just out of material. So they're going to make things up. They want to say stupid things. And, the butt of every joke is President Trump. I started to pay attention. I'm like, well, you know what? He is doing some good things. I mean, he's not, can't say he's the greatest president of all time because, first of all, he hasn't even completed a term. And second of all, he's still got a long way to go. Mm-hmm. But if I were an African American person or a Latino, or I am half Latino, but to me these Democrats, it's so insulting that the way that they're talking about the black vote and the Latino vote, it's almost like when someone's being insulting towards a race and they're saying those people.
I would say
we're going to get those people to vote for us.
I do agree that the Democratic Party has definitely been pandering to African Americans and Latino Americans for quite some time, and not just African Americans but Latino Americans. I think all voters across the United States, with how much information is now available to you, are much more intelligent than just listening to whatever TV show you're watching, whatever radio host you're listening to is just shoving down your throat. I think that now that you can go out there and you can see, you can educate yourself on exactly what's really going on in the country. I think that the Democratic Party doesn't realize that, and they still have this elitist perspective that is just counting on the African American and the Latino American vote that they've had for 50 years.
Well, I think that entitlement is out the window after the 2016 election, though, JD. I think that's a lesson that should be learned, right? That you just can't count on it. You can't just you use the word pandering. I would argue that it's not necessarily pandering. It's the fact that a lot of minorities in this country, their values and their expectations from politicians align more with the Democrats as opposed to the Republicans. That's why they support Democrats when it comes to politics. Well, that's my opinion. I don't think it's necessarily just a pandering situation.
The expectation has been that Chicago, San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, all these Democratic, all these urban areas, these very densely populated urban areas are going to vote Democratic, and a lot of those densely populated urban areas
because they do
have, and a lot of those areas have minorities. I think that Donald Trump is trying to go after a couple of those major cities and those states that have always voted Democratic. I think that Donald Trump wants not a clean sweep, but something close to it. I think Donald Trump is looking for one of the, just based on what I'm seeing, I think he's looking for one of the biggest landslide victories in the history.
Well, good luck to President Trump on that,
trying
to get the vote of California, New York, and some other liberal parts of the country. I think it's going to be tough sledding for him. 702-257-5396. Marge joins us here on the Vegas Take. Marge, what's going on?
Hey, what's up, Marge?
Hi there. Chris, you really do a great job in coming in and taking that chair.
Thanks, Marge. Appreciate it.
Typically has. One couple of thoughts. I mean, I previously said on your show that I still think a gay male will probably become a president well before a female. I just don't see a female ever ascending to that, unfortunately, for the female group. But the other thing that's
Marge, you don't think that Ivanka Trump would have a chance in 2024?
No. and talk about experience. I mean, yes, she sits in the White House, but who knows what she's doing,
Right. And that's valid.
And we saw it certainly with Hillary. I know Hillary was not a great person as far as a campaigner is concerned, but someone with her resume, if she can't make it, even with all the political strength and everything else she had behind her.
Right. And with how juiced in she is with her husband, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. But the other thing that struck me recently is that listening to Rush and listening to Sean on Monday, it almost seems like there is a scripting going on with Trump's friends that are in the media. And he's kind of dictating to them what to say.
Oh, absolutely.
He knows he can't say it, but he's getting his message out very subtly. And I really don't think people really have grabbed onto that and realized it yet. I think the way it's being done, it's very subtle.
It's subtle, and it's actually ingenious, and it's very impressive. You're right, Donald Trump, and I've been saying this for quite some time, but Donald Trump is getting his dirty work done through, call him his media cronies. They're delivering the message. They're branding the people that he wants to be branded because he can't do it himself. If he does, he faces backlash. Now, Donald Trump back in 2016, he would have attacked him himself, but now he's learning the political game, which he didn't. This is something he wouldn't have done a couple years ago. But Donald Trump is absolutely, in my opinion, telling Sean Hannity, Rush Limbaugh, Laura Ingraham, Fox News, he's telling them what he wants the media to perceive specific people as, and it's working out in his favor.
JD, I got to push back, and thanks for the phone call, by the way.
Great call, Marge.
Great call, Marge. Look, I would push back on that a little bit. Obviously, people like Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, these people have a following, right? They have their own perspective. They have their own viewpoint when it comes to all things, whether it's politics, social issues across the board. I don't necessarily think Rush Limbaugh or Sean Hannity are taking cues from the president.
If Sean Hannity...
the segment originally started because we were talking about, Rush Limbaugh and the president giving advice to Rush,
right,
as far as whether or not you should apologize.
And let's think about this as well. Rush Limbaugh.
That's what we were talking about.
He suddenly gets the Presidential Medal of Freedom during the State of the Union.
Yeah.
After he declares he has advanced stage 4 lung cancer, all the attention is on Rush Limbaugh at that point. And then suddenly 3 days later, he drops this bomb about Buttigieg, the 37-year-old gay guy who kisses his husband.
Yeah.
There's no coincidence there, in my opinion.
Well,
I think that's
what that is, though, JD. That's just a conservative talk show host looking to muddy the waters as we roll here into election season, and you've got Democrats going up against Democrats. Right now, it's about these basically top 6 people in the Democratic Party running for president. And they're trying to distinguish themselves individually, right? They're trying to show aspects of themselves that can make them a good president. And Rush Limbaugh and other people, by the way, who are conservatives, a lot on the station, who are pointing out either pros or cons about the individual candidates. That's what it's about. And with Rush, when Rush Limbaugh drops that bomb in about sexual orientation about Pete Buttigieg, that's basically what I just mentioned, muddying the waters when it comes to the democratic process as far as running for president. The show is The Vegas Take. It's coming away live here on a Wednesday. I'm Chris Wynn in for Brian Shapiro along with JD Sharp here live in studio. Coming up in the 11 o'clock hour, we'll be joined here live in studio by prominent Southwestern businessman Gavin Maloof. The Maloof family, very well known, not just in the Southwest and here in Las Vegas and around the country, but they've been known obviously as the owners of the Sacramento Kings. They are now minorities of the Vegas Golden Knights here in Las Vegas.
Gavin's sister Adrian is she's been on the Real Houses of Beverly Hills. Housewives of Beverly Hills.
Yes.
And the family is extremely prominent, not just on the entire West Coast and in the United States.
And of course, he's going to be joined by Lisa Song Sutton, who is a GOP candidate for Congress in District 4 here in Nevada, in Las Vegas. They're going to join us here live in the studio. So much to talk about with them, JD, because we can get into all aspects, not just in business, but of course the sports scene here in Las Vegas. Given the changing dynamic in this town, it is going to be extraordinary, to be quite honest with you, to watch exactly what happens here in the coming months. Obviously, the Las Vegas Raiders, they are now officially the Las Vegas Raiders coming to town. So you're going to have the NFL having a constant presence here in the city of Las Vegas. I know that it stuns a lot of native Las Vegans here in town because you would have thought, 5, 10, 15 years ago that it would be absolutely unheard of that an NFL franchise would be here. And, of course, Gavin, being the former owner of the Sacramento Kings, we're going to talk about the sport of basketball, the NBA. We're going to talk about the state of the current NBA and also the possibilities of that coming here to Las Vegas. And, of course, about the Vegas Golden Knights, obviously also the NHL and Major League Baseball and what it means as far as sports here in the Las Vegas Valley. And, of course, the ties into the business aspect of it also with Gavin Maloof. So really, really cool to get a chance to get him in studio and get his viewpoint and his perspective on those topics. So we want to take your phone calls to 702-257-5396 for both Gavin and Lisa when they come in studio. And it's going to be, as I pointed out, the next 4 days is going to be very intriguing to say the least, JD, as we have the Democratic debate as well as the caucuses coming up this weekend. It's the Vegas Take coming away live, 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDON, the talk of Las Vegas.